Welcome back. We are going to start the second section talking about feedback. And part of the user design experience is gathering feedback. And we want to talk specifically today about the student to teacher feedback we get. This can be both indirect and direct. This can come in the form of questions about assignments or locating activities within the class. You can also look at some indirect feedback about what percentage of your students are engaging in learning. What percentage of your students are completing the task as intended. And then your teacher reflection on how things are going. This is part of our, like Tracy was saying in the first section, this is part of our craft. When we're doing a lesson with students, we're constantly thinking about, are my students getting it? How am I going to know if they get it? What am I going to do if they don't? And going through those questions in our minds. So for the next section, we want to think about what are ways that students have given us feedback, whether it be direct or indirect, and how can we use that to inform our practice moving forward. Some examples of direct feedback would be, I can't find this. When is this assignment due? How do I turn this in? Where do I turn it in? Miss, is this for a grade? You could be seeing that the work is not being completed correctly. Maybe there's work, the pre-work is missing and they're just completing the actual assignment with a lack of understanding. It could be that students aren't attending the synchronous learning opportunities that you have for them. There could be a general lack of participation or interest. So all of these examples, there are plenty more examples, but here are just a few to kind of get your mind thinking back on the first semester. So at the district level, we collected feedback from our various stakeholders. We got feedback from student committees, from our teachers, from our teacher parents. Our teacher parents have a unique perspective because they are in charge of groups of students, as well as trying to help their own child navigate this virtual learning experience. And then some of our most valuable feedback has come from our students who are actively participating and can give us the ins and outs of what the student experience is. These students for sure are committed to their learning, and for some of them this is the first time they've ever experienced any challenge in learning. But as we look through all of this feedback, we noticed that 4 common themes emerged. The first being communication, and really, how are we communicating what our students need to know? The second being course structure. And then the third and fourth, we actually split into these 2 categories. They all kind of fall under student supportive learning. We separated them out though, because there are certain procedures that you teach in your class at the beginning of the year that once your students are coming in face-to-face, it becomes routine, and that's that. And when you get a new student, you just teach that routine and move on. So as students are going in between our environments right now, they have to quarantine maybe, we want to make sure that the procedures for our courses are pretty clear. And then the last common theme was about instructional support. How do I access the actual learning that I need to do? And what do I need to make sure that I can do to show you that I know what I know? This is a link to the actual Schoology instructional expectations document. And
yeah, so I'll walk them through this part a little bit because this document is really kind of the meat of what we're talking about for second semester. And the purpose of this is not for us at curriculum instruction to come down and say, okay, we need to do this, this, and this, and be bossy, but we really have noticed with the feedback that we've gotten, there's a need for some continuity across the district. We have to always keep in mind, again, putting on our different hats, that as a parent, I may have 3 different kids at 3 different grade levels. And if everybody's doing something, and our secondary kids have multiple teachers, so if everybody's doing something very different, it becomes very hard as a parent to support my students efficiently. And so what this document is about is really tightening our design so that there's some consistencies and norms across our district to help all of our users, all of our stakeholders be able to navigate the virtual learning space more efficiently. So the first thing I want to talk about on this document that you have received is that we began each section intentionally with reflection. Remember, that's the iterative cycle we talked about before with design implementation we're really solid on, but it's the reflection, is taking that feedback that we get from our stakeholders, reflecting on it, and then and analyzing it, and then redesigning the things that we need, that we are consistently getting feedback on. And so we want you to go through this document with a reflective mindset to determine where you need to begin your work for second semester. There may be certain areas where you've got a strong handle on it, but maybe there's some things that you can tighten up just a bit to make the user experience more satisfying, and to reduce miscommunication or misunderstandings or some of those frustrations that both our students and parents are feeling. This will help us meet the needs of our learners better for second semester. And as we move forward, Schoology is not going anywhere. We are going to continue to use Schoology. It's not just a COVID thing. It's something that we can use to differentiate and provide our students a better learning experience and help them become independent and have greater agency in the learning process. Emily, real quick, will you go back and open up that document? Because I just want them to see, I want to reference what I'm talking about with the reflection questions. If you will go to the communication page, there you go. You'll notice that at the top of this section, remember there's 4 kind of themes, 4 areas that we found that we were getting a lot of feedback on. There will be some questions for your reflection. And so really read those questions over and think about that. And then below you'll find there's some examples in practice. We saw some great things. Some of you are already doing exactly what you need to do. And so we wanted to pull some examples from that where it was applicable to give you a visual representation of what it is that we're talking about. And certainly if you have questions, reach out to your instructional coaches, your digital learning coaches. We are happy to help you if you have questions regarding this document. All right, Emily,
Definitely. Can I interrupt real quick?
Yep.
So I wanted to point out that if you are an elementary teacher, that we are specifically speaking about those teachers that teach virtual students. And we have many elementary teachers that just teach in-person students. And so I want to point out the use of Schoology here. And it says, the degree to which in-person learners utilize Schoology may differ by course and by teacher. And by course, we know many elementary teachers have everything in their homeroom course, and they've put like a do not use on the other courses. We do want kids to be accessing Schoology regularly so that should they need to be quarantined, that it's not a complete shock to have to go back into the platform. And, it is a step into incorporating this into our daily practice. So the rest of these expectations for in-person learners are not what we're talking about for just the teachers that teach in person, if that makes sense. I did want to make that clarification right now. And if you have questions about, hey, I haven't been using Schoology at all this year because I just teach in person, contact your digital learning coach to be able to help. What could be a way that you get your students in on a daily basis and get them back familiar with the platform. Because it does offer, like Tracy said, a great way to differentiate for students. And we can take some small steps into making sure that students are regularly using it so they feel comfortable. We've had many examples where teachers have been at class on Tuesday and had to find out that afternoon that they had to quarantine for the next 14 days. Or same for students, that it just happens like that. And in order to try to make it a more smooth process, it helps that we're getting into the platform on a daily basis.
It's just so unpredictable, right, Emily? It's really about building routines. The more effective routines we can build within our classroom, both virtual and face-to-face, that incorporates our and leverages the power of our technology tools, then that will, at some point, that will kind of fade away into the background, and we'll just be focusing on the design, effective design and instruction. Right now, it feels a bit heavy because it's still so new, but we want to be establishing those routines and processes, incorporating our technology at to really leverage that power and help it become more seamless and more transparent.
Definitely.
All right, so again, we mentioned the 4 different areas, communication being the first. And with that, one of the main things is that we are using our Schoology platform. Last year, a lot of people used Google Classroom. Some people didn't do anything. But our Schoology, we want to be consistent across our district for our parents. And so Schoology is our learning management system that we have adopted. And we, like we said, we need to be using it and building those routines with our students, because we at any time can be quarantined either as a teacher, or our students may have to be quarantined. So we want to make sure that there's routines that they're comfortable with so they don't miss a beat. Notifications are an important piece of this. And although I know those notifications can be rather irritating, there's some notifications you definitely want to leave on. If parents are messaging you, because Schoology is our learning management system and they're sending you messages, or students are sending you messages in Schoology, if you're not checking those Schoology messages on a regular basis, then they may get frustrated because they're not getting a response from you. The way to avoid this is to make sure those notifications are turned on for direct messages to you from parents and students, and that way they'll come into your Outlook email, and that will improve your communication cycle with your parents and your students. The weekly overview, really the purpose for this is to give students, and this really impacts our secondary students a lot, a peek at the week. They have multiple teachers. And what we've noticed happening is that because teachers are wanting to be flexible and give kids extra time, maybe all of the assignments for this week are due on Friday. Well, our kids don't know how to time manage. And so they will look on their calendar and see that nothing's due tomorrow. And then all of a sudden Thursday, they've got every assignment in the world due on Friday. And they're like freaking out because they didn't realize they've got 15 different assignments that are due and they hadn't been doing anything all week. The weekly overview is a way for you to give them a peek at the week of what we're going to be learning, what materials they may need to purchase or have at the ready, and what things they are going to need to complete for the week, so they can start to time manage. And that's not something we've spent a lot of time working on with our kiddos. It's an important piece of student agency. And in order for our students to have greater ownership of their learning, we've got to start building this capacity within our kids. And so by creating a weekly overview, we're giving them a tool or a structure for them to see, this is what's happening in each of my classes this week. These are the materials I might need. This is the things I might think about. This is the things that are due. And so I can start to use my calendar to pace my work so that I don't have everything due at once. So that is a really important piece in the communication process. The daily agenda is a little more specific. Think of this as the checklist where you're going to put your learning and language objectives and what's going to, just the flow of the day and what they will need to complete. On your daily agenda, you can say today you will complete this assignment and submit it, whatever assignments they're due or what materials they might need. And so that's just a little more detail about the day. Think of that as what you have on your board when the kids come in, your warm up with your objectives, they come in and that's a part of their getting started routine. The course structure was a theme that showed up in a lot of our feedback, and that has to do with our folder order, our folder organization. There's a couple of different options that we've seen teachers use. Some teachers use Monday through Friday folders. Some teachers use unit folders, and that kind of differs between elementary and secondary, but that there is a structure and an organization. If you are being consistent in how you organize your course structure, kids won't have to spend time trying to figure out where to go. And so all of this helps the student experience. We want our kids to be able to get to what they need with as few clicks as possible. We want them to be able to find exactly what they need when they need it. And so folder order and organization can be really, really important. Also, how you name your assignments, including due dates and the names of the assignments being more detailed so kids know exactly what assignment is due when, can be very, very valuable. Again, in that process of helping kids manage their time and calendar and set their pace. So adding your assignment due dates is a really great strategy.
Yeah, one of the things also for our students starting in 4th grade, they have access to the student self-serve portal for Teams. And it's a great way to be able to promote some student agency, that they can log into our gradebook and see, this is the assignment and this is the grade, or this is assignment that I'm missing. And when they go over to Schoology to do the work, it's the same thing. So they can see the correlation between that. The same thing goes for our parent portal as well, but it makes it super easy to find the information that way.
We've all experienced bad websites, and they are not fun, and they are very frustrating. Usually it's, the government websites that you're like trying to find that specific form, and you're like, oh my gosh, why isn't this better organized? So think about that as you are designing your Schoology course. We did separate student support out into 2 sections. The first section being kind of the procedures about how to navigate, how to function in that digital space. So your course navigation, your landing page, that's that first interface that the kids experience. Some of you have created Bitmojis, which are awesome. I'm not a Bitmoji person. I'm more of a folder person. But whatever that is, as long as you have designed it with intention and you have taught your students how to navigate your course, that will be of help. And these kind of things include the things that they reference all of the time: your office hours, your Zoom connection, the daily, weekly agendas, when your tutorials are, how they get tutorial help, technical questions. How do I do this? What if my computer's not working? We've got that, the technology parent student help page, which should be quickly accessible to them. Any additional resources they might need to help them be more successful, and how do they know what assignments are missing? So think about just that structure of how to find all that important information in your course. Put on that student hat and walk through it. And is there some things that you can do in your classroom design that will improve that flow or access for students?
Certainly. And I want to remind us that being students coming to our room daily or every other day now with a block schedule at secondary, physically sitting in that room creates the time and space for learning for our students. And there's a structure that's inherent there, that if students have not created that for themselves at home, that is missing now. And so being able to see you every day, every other day, helps students stay on task and remind themselves of the learning that they need to do and accomplish in that day. And so providing this extra structure helps our students that are in the virtual environment to have a little bit more of the face-to-face structure while they're still at home.
Yeah, I think the challenge for a lot of our virtual students is that just the physical being in the school building creates a learning mindset. And from classroom to classroom, we as teachers set up our learning environment to create the mindset that we want to evoke or want our students to be in as they learn. And they don't have that when they're virtual learners. They're at home where they're usually hanging out, watching TV, having snacks. And so it's a completely different mindset. So anything we can do in the virtual space that will help replicate or create that mindset is a positive. And so think about that in terms of how am I creating the learning mindset for my students in my digital space? And that's talking about the kind of the procedure and the setup of our classroom and the navigation. The second part of student support is the instructional piece, learning the content. And this has to do with our lesson design. Short instructional videos for asynchronous content is really important. Not all of our students are going to come to our Zooms. We have an asynchronous model here for our COVID response. That means students aren't required to show up to the Zooms to get the to attend. If they know what to do and they can follow the instructions and do their work and not come to the Zoom, that's okay. We encourage them. We want them to come to our Zooms, but what if they don't? We can't control what's happening at home. We don't know if they're helping support their younger siblings while also trying to learn themselves and their parents are working. So we need to make sure they have some way to get the content, to learn the content. And to be honest, watching a recording of your Zoom is just not going to do it. We do have a section on our virtual teaching toolkit on how to use Zoom more effectively. You might check that out. We'll reference that later. But make sure that you're posting some instructional videos, whether they're created by you or whether you've gotten them from somewhere else, and they are appropriately timed. Come on, guys, when you want to learn how to do something and you go to YouTube to find a video, you're bypassing those 30-minute videos. You're looking for that 4-minute video. Don't give me the fluff, just show me what I need to do. And your kids are going to be the same. If you're creating a 30-minute instructional video, they're going to tune you out after about 5 or 6 minutes if they make it that long. So if you've got longer chunks, longer sections of instructional content, you need to chunk it into smaller bites so that they have time to process the information before they move on. Make sure your instructional resources are posted to support student learning, anchor charts, any other resources that you use or have kids reference. They have those resources probably in the classroom. They might not have them at home. So any resources that you want them to have quick access to, put them in an easy to reach space and teach your students how to access those when they need them. And then again, I just talked about this earlier. We have best teaching practices and engagement strategies for Zoom meetings on our hybrid teaching toolkit. So you can check that out. Those are both linked in this presentation.
Okay, so that concludes our second section. So you can, we're going to stop this video and then we're going to come back to talk about a user feedback process for analysis.